Now, anyway, congratulations to the presentation. So during the course of my presentation, we are going to talk about 5 cases, both domestic and international cases. All of them were related to hacking, and I'm going to give you a short, the short summary or consequence. I'm not going to talk of womanizing because this would not be appropriate for men. I mean, talking about it would not be appropriate. And also, as a lawyer, I learned this thing, that secrecy, legal secrecy, is very important. So this is better for ladies to leave this topic to ladies. Now, the first case was in the practice of our law office, and therefore we are not going to. I'm not going to reveal the name. We were not representing, by the way, the hacking party. We were representing the suffering party. Now, anyway, this guy was fired. However, even after being fired from the company, he was still very keen on following the destiny of the company. So he kept going back on the server, to the server of the company. Well, it was not a code breaking, it was just a password breaking, and he also had some passwords in mind, which passwords had not been changed. So he used those passwords and also broke some passwords and got into the server, and then copied the mails of the managers. He also had an access to the statistics and the business plan and everything. And then, as it normally happens, he became bolder and bolder. And then he was having correspondence with his former boss, and then he copied certain details of the correspondence of his boss that he managed to eavesdrop, and therefore, obviously, the bosses also knew that he had an access to these things. And then once he used his home Wi-Fi, probably he was drunk, but for 72 hours he was on the server, connected to the server, hooked up on the server for 72 hours again from his home Wi-Fi, so it was easy to detect then. As far as hacking is concerned, technically this is quite a simple case. However, legally speaking, the defense said that there is no direct evidence against the undisclosed person. But there's no direct evidence because no one stood by him when he committed the crime, or when he was committing the crime. I'm not telling you who the famous Hungarian defense lawyer was who came up with this argument. Obviously, the court just swept this away, and they had another defense saying that that someone used his Wi-Fi, broke his Wi-Fi, and this is why the IP address showed his IP address, because probably there was a drive-by hacking at his house. And also the forensic expert said that this was possible. We tried to convince the forensic expert to sort of realize that this was not really a practical thing, because this was for 72 hours. Now, a drive-by hacker would never be standing in front of your place for 72 hours, breaking your Wi-Fi, and then having an uninterrupted online link. Now, then obviously within 72 hours the laptop would, the battery would die. Then the forensic expert said that that you can use the battery of the car, but even the battery of the car would die. Then the forensic expert said that, yeah, but the engine was running. Yeah, but 72 hours, I mean, for 72 hours running engine, that's quite a lot. So anyway, it was very, very unrealistic. I mean, this defense argument. And unfortunately, the forensic expert was in favor of this defense argument. I don't want to hurt this person. This was a 60-year-old bloke who sort of liked the defendant and wanted to help the defendant with these arguments. And then there was another interesting argument, a defense argument, saying that there was a conspiracy against the defendant, this was actually a mid-sized Hungarian company, and that this mid-sized Hungarian company made this all up, coming up with false evidence, coming up with everything. Even the email address he used was probably made up, fabricated by the company, the former company and the former bosses of this chap. So that probably even the bosses sent themselves this fabricated mail on behalf of this bloke who was the defendant. Now let's see what the court said, the independent Hungarian court. Now, the fact that there was no one standing by this guy when he was committing his crime, the judge said that yes, but there are quite a lot of cases, for example, even murder cases or homicide, when there is no one standing by the person committing the crime, carrying out the crime, and then still the person is after that accused and imprisoned. Although we know that there are people who sit down in rubber gloves in order to prevent their fingerprints leaving traces on the keyboard. Anyway, there's a basic principle, is that anything beyond reasonable doubt, only anything beyond reasonable doubt can be accepted that's the only thing that can be taken into account in the course of a sentence. Anyway, the court said that this was not realistic. I mean, that there was a drive-by hacking using, or Wi-Fi hacking using his Wi-Fi. Like, you know, anyone standing there for 72 hours in the proximity of like 50 meters or 100 meters. We also initiated a site visit in order to see whether it was possible. However, the court, the judge overruled this. And then the judge, as far as the third argument was concerned, the conspiracy argument, he said that at least 7 top managers should have been involved in that conspiracy, and they should have prepared for that conspiracy for over 6 months. Therefore, that again was not realistic and was not accepted by the court. Again, it's very interesting that this guy knew a lot of nicknames, knew a lot of other details, which was actually indirect evidence, considered to be indirect evidence. Therefore, this is what they used. So for a certain while, it appeared that with the participation of the forensic expert, the defense would be successful. However, it wasn't. Now, this was only to indicate that the Hungarian jurisdiction is still in its early childhood in this respect. Next case. This is the Solo case from the United States, U.S. versus Gary Mckinnon. I don't know if you know Gary Mckinnon. Pink Floyd wrote a song in order to prevent this guy from being extradited, because this guy is arrested in the UK and the US wants to have this guy back in the US. From 97, this guy attacked 97 computer networks, including smaller networks like those of the NASA, the US Air Force, US Army, Department of Defense, the DoD, and so forth. He stole op system files, deleted op system files, which caused the collapse of 2,000 computers, or the crashing of 2,000 computers in the military district of Washington, resulting in like $800,000 US of damage. Obviously, we know that the claims law in the U.S. is different, so 800,000 could have included certain emotional damage as well. You know, emotional distress is a very important element of. There are also punitive damages. However, this here was not important because this was not at stake. However, this chap, as it turned out later, he suffers from a certain syndrome, Asperger's syndrome, which is related to, similar to autism. And therefore, he was searching for UFO files and UFO-related infos, because his pre-concept was that there's a lot of UFO encounters, and then these are kept kept secret. And he was also, referring to anti-gravity patterns, because quite a lot of people think that the anti-gravity patterns are already there and the technology is there. However, these things are not given not made public. So this guy was allegedly looking for these files and such information, and meanwhile he also deleted certain other op system files. Now the defense was quite interesting, because did he find information on UFOs and anti-gravity? Well, tonight over a beer I'll talk about that, and I'll also talk about womanizing, okay? Anyway, he did find, by the way, because he also had seen UFOs, and when this was also concealed, kept secret, then this was how he realized that this was a general practice. And he had this autist type of monofocal approach. Anyway, legally speaking, let's see the defense arguments. The defense said that even in these highly protected systems, there were certain machines that were not secured. There were no passwords, or the password was password. Therefore, it was very easy to break in. There were no firewalls in certain cases. And eventually, he also wanted to point out that there were so many security shortfalls and security shortfalls. Now, the reason why this is interesting as an argument is because this had a certain element of truth, because even Hungarian law says that unauthorized access is punishable only if the system has defense mechanism and they do work, they do function as well, so they are up and running. Therefore, they are not switched off, they are not paused, and they are not idle. And let me go further. The literature also says that such defense should also be effective. So, it's like when you do trespass. If trespass, you can only do trespass if there is a fence. And they say that it's not enough to have a fence which is like 1 meter high. You need to have a 2 meters high fence, because that's only proper defense or effective defense. But what is effective defense? These are all relative and not absolute categories. It's like the commentary code. This is not detailed. So these are very much related to the given situation, and these are very much relative to the situation and to the case. However, if we look at this specific case, the systems of the U.S. military, the U.S. armed forces, so the defense has to be effective as well. Having like password as the password, this is like leaving the gate open. And also you have a script above saying that please come in and do trespass.
Okay, the next case, the U.S. versus the Soviet Federation, Alexei Ivanov and Vasily Gorshkov, who were looking for jobs in the U.S., and for this purpose they broke into a couple of job portals just to see the rivals and whatever. What really happened was that they changed the CVs of the rivals, and so there were a lot of other steps that they made in addition to just looking. And companies like Speakeasy or Nara Bank or Central National Bank were also targeted for extorting money. I've